Hey everybody, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. I really appreciate it. This one's an exciting one for me. We've got the trade deadline coming up in a couple of days. So many options for different teams out there, looking at the caps, looking at the players, looking at if they're a UFA or maybe a long-term contract type situation. There's so many scenarios where things could happen between so many teams. It's an exciting video to make and to prep for and to just kind of go through ideas in the head. And before you skip ahead to see maybe you're only here for a specific team, maybe your favorite team, just give me 50 seconds because I want to touch on 3 subjects before I begin, and I really only need about 50 seconds. So item number 1, the lava lamp is back. Heck yeah, it's made its return. Item number 2, this is a fridge. It's a little bar fridge. It's going to officially be the sticker fridge, the fan fridge. Any stickers you guys send in on mail time is going to go on that fridge, and that fridge will stay either in my office or the podcast studio from now on. It's going to be your fridge, the fan sticker fridge. As you can see, I already have some stickers up there. I will post a picture of this front of this fridge as it is now on Instagram coming up soon. So if you're not following me on Instagram, please do that. Link down below in the description. Item number 3, after the trade deadline passes here in a couple of days, I will be doing a recap video of every single trade on this channel. It might be a long video, but I'm going to do it, and I'm really excited for it. So if you're not subscribed, I hope you can go down and hit the subscribe button. That not only helps my channel, but you'll be able to see any future videos because I post on a daily basis now, sometimes twice a day. So things are going great on the channel, and thank you so much for your support if you're already subscribed. All right, let's get into this video. I'm actually not going to show my face for the rest of this video, maybe until the end, because, well, number 1, my face looks stupid, and number 2, I think it might be more beneficial to ingest this information if I maybe just show maybe a logo of the team and then narrate over top of it. So that's kind of the style we're going to do for this video, and I'm going to try and get through it pretty quick because I don't want to hold you guys up. I don't want this to be a super long video for you. So let's get into this and not waste any more time. Here we go. So the entire point of this video and question at hand is your team a buyer or a seller? We're going to go through all 31 teams right now, starting off with the Anaheim Ducks. In my opinion, the Anaheim Ducks are sellers. They are 13 points out. Their last trade was December 2019, technically a year ago. Delzato and Grant are UFAs. Yes, I know. Could they be used as rentals? But their stock is pretty low right now, so I really don't see a lot of movement out of Anaheim. If any name is in play, it's probably Ryan Miller. Teams out there need a little bit of insurance in net. Ryan Miller is both experienced and can still contribute at his age, even though he's I don't want to say approaching 40, but we all know that Ryan Miller is quite close to 40. So even though he's a bit older, I still think he can contribute to some teams out there, and I do expect Ryan Miller to potentially move at this deadline. Next to the Vancouver Canucks, I see them as buyers. They are 1 point from the Pacific Division lead. They already brought in Tyler Toffoli, which fills the Brock Besser gap with the injury. Just because Markstrom is a UFA does not mean that he will be traded. Stop these rumors. I can't believe that people are talking about them on Twitter and Reddit and all this stuff. Markstrom will not be traded. I would probably lay a substantial bet that he will be a Vancouver Canuck for a long time. If anything, I could see them going after another right side defenseman to fall back on in case of injury during a playoff run. Next up is the Los Angeles Kings, and it's quite obvious that they are sellers. 21 points out. You've got names like Campbell, Toffoli, Clifford, and Martinez who have all been dealt so far. These are huge names that were the core of this team for so long. Are there other big names on the block? Is it Brown? Is it Quick? Maybe a Carter? Could they potentially go somewhere? Now, it gets complicated because Brown has a modified no trade clause, but sometimes players want out. Is this the situation with some of these names? Quick is 34, I believe. He's on the back end of his career, but he's still a very good goaltender, probably one of the best in the league. Maybe a little inconsistent lately, but could he go somewhere to help another team? I think he is quite the asset and definitely could help another team, maybe a Colorado, maybe a Vegas, a team in need of a solid backup, even if it's just for the next couple of months. Jonathan Quick in Vegas alongside Fleury doesn't really make sense considering they're both starting goaltenders, but how deadly would Vegas be having Quick and Fleury in net? I really do believe that LA is probably done for the most part. If they do anything, you can almost certainly expect them to get more picks in return. They're really stockpiling right now. The Edmonton Oilers are 100% buyers. They are leading the Pacific as I'm making this video. Connor McDavid is unfortunately out, but they are still playing well without him. They still need help along the left side. Up front, this is the 4th season in a row now where that gap needs to be filled, and they still have not done it. Could they do it at this deadline? Chances are probably not, but we'll see. There are honestly a lot of UFAs in the lineup, but sending them out for a better return could honestly just ruin chemistry. It's surprising how well they're doing without McDavid, and chemistry just seems to be really working in Edmonton right now, so I probably would not change things too dramatically. Here's kind of the kicker. If they didn't have that retained Lucic salary, they could probably have a few more dollars to play around with and maybe bring someone in who can contribute in a depth role, maybe third or fourth line. Arizona's the next team on the list, and they have to be buyers. Currently, they're in wildcard spot number 2. They were buyers from the moment that they obtained Taylor Hall in that very dramatic trade with the New Jersey Devils. It makes them buyers. They've been buyers since then. With Kemper injury, I suspect they could be interested in a goalie for insurance, possibly Miller. Minor additions from here on out, though, in my opinion. Probably not anything too bold, and certainly not as bold as the Taylor Hall trade. I suspect Arizona will be fairly quiet, but they might make a couple of moves. San Jose, as you've guessed it, are sellers in my opinion. They're 12 points out. They just sent Dylan out, and is this the start? I think we could be in for maybe a culture change in San Jose. There's names like Sorensen, Thornton, who does have a no movement clause, Marlowe, some really important names that could be on the block. And if they really, really want to change the culture, then they will start to look at names like LeBanc, Carlson, Sorensen, like I said, maybe even Vlasic, Jones. Now, it does get complicated. Vlasic does have a no movement clause, and Jones has a modified no trade clause. But honestly, the play this season has not been acceptable. The fans demand better. They expect better. San Jose has been such a consistently competitive team in the past 10 years. I can't imagine San Jose fans are accepting this season as a one-off. They need success. They deserve success. They've gotten so close in the past 10 years with a Stanley Cup final appearance, a couple of conference final appearances. They're a team that really needs to get back there, and it's a big decision for the team. Do they do what the Rangers did a couple of years ago and just boldly say, you know what, we're changing things up? I don't necessarily think they should do that, but they might want to consider making more of a retool versus a rebuild. So we'll see what happens. The Calgary Flames, in my opinion, are buyers. Currently, they're in wildcard spot 1, only 2 points away from the top of the Pacific. In my opinion, a left defense should be on one of their priority lists. They only have 3 NHL-ready left defense, and if one gets injured, they're kind of in a pickle a little bit. A little more skilled right winger could be possible as well. Sam Bennett is basically their number 2 right winger. That's no knock against Sam Bennett. I would just like to see a little bit more skill in their top 6, especially on the right side. To me, any problem in Calgary is more emotional than structural. I think this team is built fairly well, and I think they just get inside their heads more than anything. I don't think they need to do anything drastic by any means. The Vegas Golden Knights are buyers, in my opinion. Tied for first in the Pacific, and obtaining Martinez recently was just absolutely huge for the team. He's a really, really good addition for the Vegas Golden Knights for their upcoming hopeful playoff run. A really experienced defenseman. Cap issues, not a lot of room to work with, but there's a couple of things you could do. You could send out Cody Eakin, who's a UFA, but I mean, I don't know. That would free up about $4 million in cap space. You could probably get some picks in return with that extra money. You could probably make a couple of moves, but I don't know. If you consider sending out maybe Holden as well, who's a UFA. Now that Martinez has joined, there could be some other options with both salaries freed up if you take picks in return. So, I mean, if you get $6 million to play with, if you send both of those guys out, you can do a lot with $6 million. So let's see what Vegas has in store. Now, the big question is, does Vegas trust Subban as a backup? They could snag some more security out there. Subban has had amazing runs for Vegas, but also some kind of greasy runs, to be honest. He hasn't been totally consistent, and I don't know if they 100% trust him. So you could see Vegas maybe potentially sneak in a security backup, maybe someone like Miller. Nashville is next, and I really do see them as buyers. I think they have to be. They're 3 points out. They're close. Their fans demand it. They have underperformed, in my opinion, all season long. Even though they are close to the playoffs, they're underperforming. If you don't think they are, then you need to look at the lineup on paper. They're just an amazing team. I can't believe they are as low as they are. I would personally probably sell. Like I said, you have underperforming players, especially straight up through the middle from line 1 to 4. They do have some cap room, so I'd try to move Turris, even though you'd probably have to retain some salary, maybe $1 million. I mean, you have a $6 million player playing at a $2 million pace. That's just not acceptable. So I know it's difficult to move him, probably impossible, but I'd like to see him try at least. Probably unlikely, though. I'd really like to see them gain a little bit more grit and size up the middle and have a person that can also contribute offensively and more importantly, consistently at the level that they expect. It is really all about value and expectations, and Turris just is not fitting value or expectations at all. Now, Pekka Rinne has really struggled again this year. Very inconsistent play. Is it time to move on? I really want to hear from Nashville fans here. I know it's maybe a bit of a love and hate relationship with Rinne. He's been with the team for so long. There's so much love to go towards Pekka Rinne. But, I mean, Saros is clearly the future of the team. In my opinion, he's a better goalie currently. I think you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you try to overplay or play Rinne the majority of the games. I just don't have any trust in Rinne, so I'm wondering if they could send him out to get something in return, maybe picks, free up some salary space. I don't know. I think there's options there. Minnesota, in my opinion, are sellers. Yes, they're only 7 points out, but about a week ago, if you had to ask me, I probably would have pegged them as buyers, but to me, just time is just running out for them. They have Koivu, who is going to be a UFA. Honestly, he's, in my opinion, a pretty attractive piece for so many teams out there, especially the teams in a playoff race. I really believe he could be such a valuable asset to so many of those teams. Is it time to retool in the offseason or blow it up? I don't think the time to retool or do anything drastic is now. I really would prefer them to wait till the offseason if they're going to do anything super drastic. They do have one thing on their side, though, and that's ease of schedule. It really works in their favor. They could be bold and be buyers, but what do their fans want? If you are a Minnesota Wild fan, I really want to hear from you on this. It's kind of a hard team to judge for me, so if you have any inside knowledge or any gut feelings or anything like that, please feel free to leave those comments down below. I read all the comments. Chicago, 8 points out. They have a fairly easy schedule coming up. They play a lot of non-playoff teams, but I really do believe that they are sellers. Not much will happen out of Chicago, in my opinion, during the deadline. They should be fairly quiet. They aren't too far out, and there's potential to make it, but I really see the majority of the potential for next year, and I think that they see that too. I would say don't blow it up and ruin it. Just work with what you have for now. If any name is in play, it's probably Leonard. He could almost certainly be traded. He's going to be a UFA, and they will get value back because Leonard is a very good goaltender with lots of experience. I see teams like maybe Vegas, probably Arizona could be interested, maybe a few East teams as well. Only time will tell, and we'll find out pretty soon because we're days away. Colorado are buyers, in my opinion. 3 points from being tied first in the division. They have the easiest schedule of any team in the NHL to finish the season. They have tons of cap space, lots of time to ascend into first in the West with some additions they could make during this deadline and really just take control of the entire Western Conference. I really do see that as a possibility if they bring in the right people. Goaltending for me is a bit of a question mark. Do they go after a big fish? Maybe they consider Leonard. I mean, some of you might not consider Leonard a big fish, but if you look at his record in the past couple of years, Leonard's been a very solid goaltender. Now, they haven't really made a trade since September, so I don't expect them to be too busy. I think they really like what they have, but they do have some injuries to address, so we might see a couple of moves. Not doing something might be their worst move. Moving on to St. Louis, I know this is a buyers or sellers type video, but if I could choose the option of doing nothing, I would choose doing nothing for St. Louis. They are leading the division. They are 100% serious about winning 2 years in a row. It's unfortunate that Bouwmeester was what happened with Bouwmeester, but they've already taken steps and they've brought in Scandella from Montreal, who's a pretty decent defenseman, but sometimes makes a couple of risky plays. But I do think he will fit in nicely in St. Louis. So why change what's broken? Expect the Blues to be quiet, in my opinion, now that they've picked up Scandella. I really don't see any other crucial or drastic changes that they need to make. The Dallas Stars are buyers, in my opinion, maybe more so of doing nothing, but I would still classify them definitely as buyers. They're 2 points from being tied for first in the Central, and I honestly don't know how. I really don't. It seems like every time I watch Dallas play, at the beginning of a game, they're going down, and then somehow they win the games, but With Radulov being injured and generally underperforming most of the year, could Dallas look to bring in some more offense into the lineup? Maybe someone like a Tatar, possibly. Obviously, cap space is their issue, so they may have to send a body out to get a body back, depending on the player, and if salary can be retained. If it is Tatar, which I don't think it will be, but if it is, if they are interested in him, I don't think the Montreal Canadiens can retain any salary on Tatar because there is already salary retained on his contract elsewhere. I really do suspect Dallas to not do anything too bold and stay fairly quiet. If they do make any trades, they'll probably be a couple of low-key ones. To round up the Western Conference, Winnipeg is the last team I'd like to talk about, and I really do think that they're going to be buyers here. I mean, they're 1 point back from a wild card. They have lots of cap space and have the opportunity to get really creative here at the trade deadline. The recent acquisition of DeMello trade, that trade really fixes some problems, but I really do think that they have more work to do on the back end. Now, do they try and bring in some more real experience there? Maybe convince someone like, I don't know, like Vlasic to waive his no trade clause, a really veteran guy to come in and kind of shake things up a little bit now that Byfuglien's not going to be playing with the team. It's possible. I really think that the Winnipeg Jets could get quite bold here at this deadline. Lots of options out there. I really do expect them to be big players. They really need to make a playoff push. Moving on to the East, the Columbus Blue Jackets are the first team I'd like to talk about, and I really do think that they're buyers. They're tied for a wild card spot as I'm filming this. They're 1 point from third in the division. Goaltending is a bit of an issue. Elvis has been absolutely amazing this season. Recently, the team has struggled, and he struggled a little bit, so it couldn't happen at a worse time. You're days away from the deadline. Your team is struggling for almost the first time in the season. They've been on such a decent run. This really is bad timing because you don't really know what to do. Do you try and fix things? Do you leave them alone? I don't know. It's really tough. Do you try and patch with what you have, or do you bring in a new Band-Aid? It's such a hard decision. Cap isn't an issue at all. I think it's more to do with fit than money. They went big last year during the deadline, and I really don't think there's that same sense of urgency there this year. I do expect some minor moves, but nothing too big. I kind of honestly hope that they do kind of surprise me, though, and go in 2 years in a row. I mean, like, completely all in 2 years in a row. That would be really awesome to see, and honestly, that's just some serious big dick energy if they do that. Next up is the New York Rangers, and I think it's quite obvious that they are sellers, but at the same time, they're only 8 points out, so I mean, it's quite possible that they could go on a run, but the Metro is just so strong. I really don't see the Rangers making it, and I think that solidifies them to be sellers. Kreider is undoubtedly one of the highest assets for grabs at this deadline, if not the highest. He should net a nice return for the Rangers, at least a first-round pick. To me, the biggest problem for the New York Rangers is that three-headed monster in net. I think that it's a problem, but it's also good in a way. It's a good problem to have because regardless of who you trade, you're probably going to get a decent return. Now we know Shesterkin isn't going anywhere. I think that's quite obvious as well. So what does that mean for either Georgiev or Lundqvist? Obviously, the King wants to retire as a Ranger, as he should, but he also wants to win a Stanley Cup. So I mean, there's potential there where he could go somewhere else, but I think it's unlikely. If he does go somewhere, where do you think that he will go? Vegas, Colorado? I think it depends on money. It depends on fit. So you tell me where you think Henrik will go if he goes anywhere. New Jersey is next, and I mean, it's quite obvious. They're sellers. They're 18 points out. If you look at the definition of seller in the dictionary, there's a New Jersey Devils logo beside of it. They're having a clearance sale, and everybody is buying. Coleman and Green have already left, as well as Hall months ago. But who else is on the block? Now, if New Jersey is willing to retain some salary, Zajac could be shipped off somewhere like Nashville, but he would have to waive his no-trade clause first. Also, why the hell does Zajac have a no-trade clause? I really feel like that probably pisses off a lot of New Jersey Devils fans. Let me know in the comments. Other names are Zacha, Simmons, Palmieri, and Subban. Yes, Subban. He could be traded. Again, where could he go? Word on the street is that the Toronto Maple Leafs are interested, but I don't know about that. Leave your comments on that in the comments section. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the Toronto section coming up. Now, the Pittsburgh Penguins, they're leading the Metro. I think they're buyers, but kind of like St. Louis, I really don't think that they do much. Anything that they should have done, I think they already did. They sent out the underperforming Galchenyuk and they brought in a gritty contributor like Zucker. Now, I say Zucker. Do you say Zucker or do you say Zucker? I think it's probably pronounced Zucker, but I've always said Zucker because when I think Zucker, I think Zuccarello. Off topic, but let me know what you think in the comments. Now, Pittsburgh runs the risk of losing Schultz to UFA in the offseason, but coming to Pittsburgh was honestly, I think, the best thing that's ever happened to Schultz in his entire career. If he leaves in July, I think it will be a mistake, so I don't think the Penguins are worried about him leaving, so I can't see them trading him now. He's an integral part of the team, and I really think the Penguins are probably going to be fairly quiet. They might add one more piece, maybe on the back end, because I mean, let's be honest, we all know that Chris Letang is going to get injured 30 minutes after the trade deadline closes. Now, the Washington Capitals are technically buyers. They are currently second in the Metro as I'm filming this, and it's a team that had an unbelievable, commanding lead on the Metro, and they just now find themselves in second place. So is it time to panic? I don't know. I mean, Ovechkin has cooled off as well as some others on the team, but how do they honestly fix it? Answer, they don't do it by addition. I really think this team is built properly and the issues are internal, not external. I don't think they need to bring in someone external to fix an internal problem. They have the ability to be absolutely dominant. We've seen it the majority of the year. I think they just need to find that level again internally, and hopefully they will. I expect Washington to be extremely quiet now that they've made a stellar move to bring in Dylan. I don't expect we'll even hear the name Washington in trade at all. Now, the Philadelphia Flyers, they have to be buyers. They're third in the Metro, a team that is incredibly solid up the middle, but holds what seems to be the world record for inconsistency offensively and defensively. It's so hard to judge this team. It's hard to say what the Flyers need because every single game that need seems to change. I don't understand it. Carter Hart and the team in general need to play a little bit better on the road if they want to go deep. You know you have to play good on the road if you want to win the Stanley Cup, and that's just not something that the Philadelphia Flyers are good at the moment this season. If I could make any changes, it would be to the back end on D, maybe another left D specifically, but I really don't expect the Flyers to be overly busy. I think they know they can't fix everything at the deadline this year. It's probably more of an off-season retool than a trade deadline retool. Now, the Carolina Hurricanes, they've got to be buyers. They're currently in wild card spot number 2 with a run like they had last year, and I mean, they're on the cusp of another playoff berth. They have to be buyers. The fans won't accept anything but. Maybe the addition of a true natural right winger other than Justin Williams could help. Currently, they have a lot of like hybrid players, guys who play right wing and left wing, guys who play right wing and center. They're just kind of all over the place a little bit. I think maybe a little bit more youth on the right-hand side, just like a true youthful right winged player would do them a lot of good, just based on shooting orientation. As far as the net goes, I really don't think there's going to be any changes. That duo seems to be working fairly good for the most part. Maybe the addition of a veteran alongside Justin Williams could help the younger core, possibly. It's a fairly young team, so an older player could be pretty valuable to the team alongside Justin. With that said, though, I really hope the Carolina Hurricanes do or go as far as they did last year, or maybe even further. The team is exciting to watch, and I think as just a general hockey fan, it would be good to see a team like that make it deep. Speaking of deep, the New York Islanders, I think they're buyers. They're currently in wildcard spot 1, which is a little bit lower than I expected them to be. But I don't think it's time to panic enough to be drastic at the deadline. With the addition of Andy Green, you get a fairly reliable defenseman who has a ton of experience. Is a really nice fit for the Islanders, in my opinion. I really don't expect the Islanders to make any big splashes at the deadline, but who knows. Now, the Bruins are going to be buyers. They're first in the East. With the Tampa Bay Lightning on their tail, Boston kind of knows they have to be a little bit more consistent than they already have, which is kind of an unbelievable thing to say because Boston has been amazing this year. I mean, the team is seemingly front-loaded with probably the best line in the NHL, and without them, the team clearly struggles. Consistent contributions from lines 2 to 4 is pretty rare, so I would expect Boston to add maybe some secondary scoring into the mix, try and fix that issue. Could players and veterans maybe like Joe Thornton be a candidate? It'd be cool to kind of see him back in a Boston Bruins uniform, maybe to end his career. I'm not sure how long he's going to play after this, but that might be neat. And if Thornton's coming, could Marleau come as well? Could they come as a pair to the Boston Bruins? That's an interesting thing. Now, the Bruins are a very typical team where at the deadline they try and bring in some older players like a Ginlas or something like that to try and fix things, but in the past it hasn't really helped. But I think it could here in this instance. I really would like to see Thornton back in a Boston uniform, even if it was just for a couple of months. The Tampa Bay Lightning are technically buyers. They're second in the East currently as I'm filming, but honestly, don't change anything. They are rolling right now, currently on an 11-game winning streak, and I mean, you just don't run the risk of screwing with chemistry at this point. I don't want to see or hear the words Tampa Bay and trade together in a sentence until July. The Buffalo Sabres are going to be absolute sellers. They're 8 points out. Eichel needs help, but not with 22 games left in the season, with 82 games left in the season. Issues should have been resolved last offseason, not at the trade deadline halfway or more than halfway through. It's very frustrating I mean, I'm not even a Sabres fan and I'm frustrated, so I can't even imagine how Sabres fans feel. Assets they could consider getting rid of, maybe for Leak, Sherry, VC, maybe a couple of others. They have so many UFAs and RFAs to deal with. I do expect some bodies to move around. This team should be drastically different next year. Now, the old Florida Panthers, what are they doing this year? Well, they're 2 points back from third in the Atlantic. They're doing pretty good. They're going to be buyers for this deadline. It wouldn't surprise me to see Florida do something extremely bold at this deadline. I just don't know if they should. Their position kind of reminds me of the Minnesota Wild a couple years ago, if I'm being honest. If I remember correctly, the Minnesota Wild gave up a first-round pick for Martin Hanzal, and that was a big fail. That didn't really go anywhere. I really hope Florida doesn't make the same mistake and do something similar. Maybe a change on the back end is needed to become a little bit more defensively reliable. Truthfully, though, I just think that Bob needs to play better in net. Next up is Detroit. I mean, it's quite obvious that they're sellers. They're 600 points away from a playoff spot. Clearly, they are sellers. If they are buyers, then things are worse in Detroit than I thought. There's so many names that could be traded. I really do think that pretty much the entire team is on the block for a possible trade. I mean, there's a couple of names, obviously, that are blacklisted, but for the most part, I mean, if you're on that team, you just have to almost expect a trade at this point. I really do feel bad for the Red Wings fans. Moving on to Montreal. Montreal's going to be sellers. I think they kind of held on to the possibility that they might make the playoffs, but you know, you go on one 8-game losing streak, and then you go on another 8-game losing streak, and as I'm filming, they're on a 5-game losing streak. They're on the way to their third 8-game losing streak in a year. It's just unbelievable. They have to be sellers at this point. Don't kid themselves. Tatar and Kovalchuk are probably the ones in play. Maybe Petrie also, who knows. I really don't want to see the Montreal Canadiens trade Tatar, but I mean, if he can net a first, I mean, then let's talk. Let's talk shop. Let's get it done, because as much as I love Tatar, I really would like another first in Marc Bergevin's pocket. Now, a very bold thing to say is, should Carey Price be dealt to a team that could give him a really good chance to win a cup? I personally deserve that Carey Price does deserve a cup, even though I'm not a huge Carey Price fan. I think he's incredibly inconsistent and potentially overrated. But with that said, let's be real, it's not going to happen in Montreal. He needs to go elsewhere if he's going to win a cup. Clearly, salary is a problem. I mean, you have to find the right team, potentially like Colorado. They've got lots of cap space. That might make sense. And I mean, can you imagine that front end in Colorado with Carey Price and net? I think we all remember, or at least older people like me remember, the last time that Montreal traded a star goalie, to the Colorado Avalanche. They went on to win the Stanley Cup. So you never know. It's not impossible. Now, the Ottawa Senators are going to be sellers. They're 17 points out. If any name is on the block, it's probably Pajot. He's almost certainly the biggest name out of Ottawa that could be on the move. They also have 8 other UFAs that could be dealt to contenders. I know I don't see them trading 8 people, but if they want to trade at least one, Anderson is one of those. Where could he land? I mean, Colorado is another option, potentially Vegas. I don't know. We'll see. Colorado and Ottawa do have a trade history, so just keep that in mind. Last team to talk about is the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're going to be buyers. They're third in the Atlantic. I mean, if you look at Florida right on their tail, and with the injuries piling up on that team, Toronto can't be anything but buyers. I believe Tyson Barrie's on the block, and there's some rumors out there that he could be dealt. In return, there's kind of some more rumors about PK Subban potentially coming back, but honestly, that move just does not make sense to me at all. Bringing in one of the most defensively unreliable players to one of the most defensively unreliable teams, that just seems a recipe for disaster in my opinion. But to be completely honest, I really do feel bad for Leafs fans, and considering the amount of injuries that they've had this season, even though I'm not a Leafs fan, it's still hard to see a team like that with so much potential lose so many man games due to injury and potentially miss the playoffs. It's going to be an absolutely crucial next 2 months for the Toronto Maple Leafs. and I'm eager to see how it goes, because I would like to see them make the playoffs and maybe actually defeat Boston this time. Well, there you have it, my entire list of thoughts for the 31 teams coming into the trade deadline. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. The best thing you can do to help me is to hit the subscribe button down below, hit the like button, leave a comment on maybe your favorite team. Whatever your favorite team is, let me know what you think. Was I right? Was I wrong? Feel free to disagree with me. I actually like when people disagree with me. It's I like a good healthy conversation, a good healthy debate or conversation down in the comment section. That's always welcome. What isn't welcome is name calling, though. If you don't like me, that's fine, but there's no reason to call me a name. There's been a lot of that recently, so let's tone that down a little bit. But I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're watching lots of hockey, and I hope you're gonna watch the trade deadline. You're gonna be glued to the screen just like I am. It's probably the most exciting time of the year, other than the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's great to be a hockey fan at this time of the year. So, guys, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope you're having an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios.